Okay, we're going to move this along as quickly as possible because we have folks who are often running to other committees. The Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions will come to order today. We are meeting for an executive session to vote on Julie Su to be Secretary of the Department of Labor. I will give an opening statement. Senator Cassidy will then give an opening statement. And after the vote, which I hope will proceed quite quickly, any member who wants to make a statement is free to do so, but we're going to move that vote as quickly as we can. I think everybody knows the issue last week. Ms. Su was before us. I strongly support her nomination, and I hope we will have the votes to take it to the floor of the Senate. Working families have been struggling for the last many decades. While we have massive income and wealth inequality, the working families of this country in the Labor Department are entitled to have a secretary who's going to stand up and fight for them, who understands that we've got to raise the minimum wage, that we need paid family and medical leave like every other major country on earth does, that we need strong overtime rules so that when people are working 50 or 60 hours a week, they get the time and a half that they need, that workers have a right to join unions and not be subject to illegal anti-union activities. And I think Julie Su, currently enrolled in California, and throughout her life has made it clear she's prepared to stand up for working families. So I hope that we can pass her nomination along to the floor, and I strongly support her. Senator Cassidy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Sanders. Former Labor Secretary Marty Walsh received Republican support for his nomination because he had unquestionable experience running organizations and handling negotiations. He had worked to develop trust between labor unions and the business community. But the nominee we're considering today is not in that mold. Ms. Su has a decades-long record of partisan activism, promoting policies that undermine workers to the benefit of politically connected labor unions. In California, Ms. Su was the chief enforcer of AB 5, a controversial law that attempts to eliminate the gig economy. While the economy of 2023 is the economy that they're attempting to limit. While Ms. Su said the Department of Labor cannot unilaterally enact an ABC test, she declined to commit that she would not attempt to pursue a similar policy to accomplish the same goal through rulemaking. We asked if she would pursue changes to the joint employer rule, a major priority of unions that would completely undermine the franchise model, a franchise model which employs 8 million Americans. Her only commitment is that it would not be on the department's agenda in June. Not a very satisfactory answer. In fact, following our hearing, many members of this committee submitted questions for the record to get better clarity from Ms. Su. Unfortunately, Ms. Su ignored senators' requests for documents and failed to respond to questions entirely. Some of the so-called answers we did receive were simply copied and pasted sections of DOL press releases that only indirectly referenced the question presented. How can we believe that Ms. Su will work in good faith with Congress when she did not respond adequately to even QFRs from members of this committee? It seems unlikely she would be more transparent after the confirmation process concludes. There's also serious concerns about Ms. Su's ability to manage an agency, and I think this should be important to my Democratic colleagues. The only large agency she's run, the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency, lost $31 billion to fraudsters in unemployment insurance. And despite repeated warnings, she chose to waive crucial safeguards recommended by the Department of Labor. This was confirmed by the California Office of the Inspector General. I once heard Senator Sanders say he is not for wasting taxpayer dollars. This was a waste of taxpayer dollars. During the hearing, we heard this wasn't a big deal because other states had fraud too. Well, if any one of those secretaries of labors in any of those other states have been here with this measure of fraud, whether it was a red or blue state, neither should they be a Secretary of Labor for the United States government. There are 150 labor contracts expiring this year. When labor disputes are not handled properly, there are massive supply chain implications and economic impacts. During Ms. Su's hearing, she was unable to provide a single instance in which she handled a successful negotiation. Ms. Su cited being with Marty Walsh during the rail negotiation as an experience, a negotiation which failed and required Congress to intervene and pick up the pieces. A qualified Secretary of Labor needs to successfully handle negotiations, be a competent manager of a department, and refrain from partisan activism. I've not seen evidence of Ms. Sue's ability to do any of these three. That's why I'm voting no on her nomination and encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cassidy. We will now vote to approve the nomination of Julie Sue. Seeing that a quorum is present, as required by the committee rules and the standing rules of the Senate, I move to favorably report the nomination of Julie Sue to be Secretary of the Department of Labor. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Murray?
Aye.
Senator Casey? Aye. Senator Baldwin?
Aye.
Senator Murphy?
Aye.
Senator Kane? Senator Hassan?
Aye.
Senator Smith?
Aye.
Senator Lujan?
Aye.
Senator Hickenlooper?
Aye.
Senator Markey?
Aye.
Senator Cassidy?
No.
Senator Paul?
No by proxy.
Senator Collins?
No by proxy.
Senator Murkowski?
No by proxy.
Senator Braun?
No by proxy.
Senator Marshall?
No.
Senator Romney?
No.
Senator Tuberville? Senator Mullen?
No by proxy.
Senator Budd?
No by proxy. And hold on just a second. I actually don't have Ms. Collins' proxy, but I'm told she's on her way.
And there she is. You worked this out for a curtain call here, huh? Did you know what you said no to? All right.
Chairman Sanders?
Aye.
I have 11 ayes, 10 nays.
The ayes have it. The nomination is agreed to and will be favorably reported. Does anybody else want to make a statement regarding Julie Sue? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In Ms. Sue's nomination hearing last Thursday, a number of concerns were raised by committee members about her qualifications to be Secretary of Labor. Many concerns were also raised about her activist past and her obvious anti-business bias. I asked Ms. Sue about the overwhelming opposition from dozens of business groups to her nomination. Her public schedule has shown that she has not met with many business groups at all. In fact, throughout her career, she's exhibited hostility towards business. At her hearing, she claimed unbelievably that they shouldn't have an issue with her record. I also raised concerns about her time as California State Labor Commissioner. Throughout her career, she has consistently worked to oppose and block efforts to stem illegal immigration and labor. While in this role, she openly resisted immigration and customs enforcement efforts to get information about California workers who had active claims against her employers. In a memo that she reportedly drafted, she directed her staff to not allow immigration agents into their offices or meetings without a federal warrant. I noted the concern of many Americans about our southern border being wide open. I specifically asked Ms. Sue to provide a copy of that memo. She first said she did not remember the memo, then she said she did not remember it well, and claimed she does not have access to it at this time. As part of my official questions for the record after her hearing, I requested a copy of this memo be provided to the committee. In her response, she claimed that she does not have the memo and does not recall its content or context. She does not deny that it does not exist. I know many of my colleagues have a number of issues with Ms. Sue's background and qualifications, and this memo is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to reasons to oppose her confirmation. However, I have to note that it's incredible we are barreling ahead with her vote while so many members have outstanding questions and objections. We deserve to know the full scope of her activist engagement and beliefs, especially when they call for breaking the law, before being forced to vote on a cabinet nominee. I yield.
Anybody else like to make a comment?
Mr. Chair? Thank
Senator
you.
Colby.
As a child of small business owners, Julie Sue's firsthand experience always informs her service. And as a first-generation American, she's got firsthand experience of the struggles and challenges so many workers and families across this country face every day, and the transformative power of a good job. Finally, as a mom, Julie Sue recognizes the need to make sure that we invest in the next generation by prioritizing 21st century workforce pipelines. She has excelled as former Secretary Walsh's deputy. I am confident she will do great things if confirmed as Labor Secretary. And I remain committed to support her nomination in committee, and I'm looking forward to supporting her nomination on the Senate floor.
Thank you. Any other statements on Julie Sue? Senator Casey.
Chairman, just really quick, just in terms of the obligations of the Department of Labor through the work of the Secretary, here's the mission statement of the department. And this is the mission statement under the last administration as well. Quote, to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of wage earners, job seekers, and retirees. Wage earners, job seekers, and retirees of the United States. Also to improve working conditions, advance opportunities for profitable employment, and assure work-related benefits and rights. It's the Department of Labor, not the Department of Labor and corporations and 9 other things. It's the Department of Labor. It's there for workers. And I obviously support her nomination.
Yep. Mr. Chairman? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. Julie Sue has spent her entire life getting ready for this job. Her resume has unprecedented levels of qualification for this position. She was at the right hand of Secretary Walsh for the last 2 years. She's ready to take over immediately without missing a beat at the Department of Labor. Unfortunately, the Republican opposition that we're hearing is not based upon anything which is actually substantive in terms of who she is and what her capacity is to do this job. So my hope is that ultimately we'll be able to find the votes for her to be successful coming out of this committee and then on the Senate floor. But there's no question in my mind that no one has ever been nominated to be Secretary of Labor who is better qualified than Julie Sue for this job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Markey. Anybody else? Let me close by simply saying it is absolutely true that Julie Sue has the support of organized labor and tens of millions of workers. But in addition to that, she also, and I want to make this point, has the support of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. California is a home state. And the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce states, quote, Ms. Sue has a distinguished career of being an innovative and inclusive leader. She has strengthened relationships with employers and deepened collaboration for better results. As Deputy Secretary, she understands the important work ahead. We enthusiastically support her nomination, end quote. That's the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. If there are no other comments, I would ask unanimous consent to insert into the record 5 letters of support for Ms. Sue. The record will remain open for 10 days for members to submit any additional information. And let me thank everybody for being here, and the committee stands adjourned.